All right, good night and welcome back once again. This is Amuna Yisrael, Soulonomics 101, the Lev Project. Woo! I hope everybody's doing well. We trying to get through this John Blackford, his diary. And he was just really a kind of, you could tell kind of his character through his diary a little bit, kind of a little bit dry. So we try to pepper it up a little bit, like I said last episode, with you know, but this is also it's business. It's a business ledger, so it's not really the emotional of it. And so yeah, I'm gonna try to bust this out this week. Hopefully, I'll get through it this week. Because if I space it out, we'll be on John Blackford for a minute, and we have some other ones we want to read, like Olado Equiano and some definitely other ones. So I'll probably pick a short one in between this. It's kind of so we could catch ourselves up. And the other thing is that reading a lot of this one isn't that heavy. It's just a little, I guess, tedious in nature, but just reading so much from the beginning of the year, it's like pacing yourself. It's a marathon. It's a marathon basically. It's not a sprint. And just reading so much, and so much is happening in the news, in the media, in the world. It takes its toll. And so, me being who I am and always speaking about healing, I have to make sure that I secure my own mental state. The door is always open for those who want to read and participate. But up until this time, we've just had a few readers, and the majority of the reading has been on myself. And so, with that being the case, I've just have to pace myself, because some of the stuff is heavy, some of it not so heavy. But again, it's all part of the process. And we're talking about over 400 years, even though we're concentrating during chattel slavery portion of the situation, and these are all first-hand accounts. And so and it has been since January, and we're in August, so 8 months. You understand? So sometimes I miss a few days and then I come back. But we're gonna try to deal with John Blackford so we can get through and really just answer the question of economics, just not in everybody's situation, but his situation particularly, because some farmers, when slavery ended, they fell, they went under, but some was able to diversify their portfolio and put it into other things and continue on. So I'm going to continue on at this page. If I'm not mistaken from last one, we was on hold on a second. I've been on a little video hiatus outside of Left Project and my videos with Brother Philippe. I kind of been on a hiatus a little bit because you keep covering. It takes a toll. It really does. It really does. Where are we? Okay, so we are on page 15. And another thing is the screen. Sometimes I don't have this. For those who may not know, this is in the box. I'm trying to see if I can lower the light on my screen. Yeah, because my screen is kind of, there we go. That's better. The screen is kind of bright, and then we're gonna make the words big so I don't trip all over the words. 1 second. And we're on page 15. There we go. And hopefully you'll be following along. And then let me do one more thing. Let me make sure no one has any questions or comments here. All right. All right, now that we've all set up, all right, now we can move. All right, the third Saturday, weather. And for those who don't know, he just usually always talks about the weather. This is his usual. He talks about the weather, so it would be a bit redundant. He talks about the weather. He talks about his visitors. He talks about if he paid anybody or if he owes anybody. He usually talks about Miss B, which is his wife, her state, because she was sick during this conversation. And also, pretty much. And he talks about Ned and Jupe in the boat. So this is what he's always talking about. So and so we're just following their life for the year on this farming plantation. Third Saturday. And also you will notice that it doesn't seem like they get a break because he goes through Saturday, Sunday, and everybody's still working. Third Saturday, weather cloudy, has fallen or snow during past night, 2 inches deep. Mrs. Fry says Nicholas Mattern has abused and threatened her in such a manner last evening that she had him taken before a magistrate and gave security for his better behavior. And Mrs. Fry practiced midwifery, and was called in by Jack Blackford to attend his slave women in childbirth. So there was some domestic violence dispute. I gave her permission to move into the it's supposed, I guess, and he also misspells sometimes. So I guess that's supposed to be permission to move into the cottage until spring. Jane noticed hauling her goods up. Negro free. George called to ask for money for wood cutting. Did not give him any. Murph and Enoch caving. I think I read this part. Hold on. I may have. I said we were on page 15. Did we end on page 15 last time? I don't know. I'm just going to finish it out being that I started. That's a recap, right? So it says here George called to ask for money for wood cutting and did not give him any. Murph and Enoch caving up, preparatory to cleaning up. Will hauling firewood with oxen and cart. Martin Shellman has come up from Sharpsburg, where he has been drunk for the last 3 or 4 days. Helena and P. Miller rode over to S Town. Eliza Miller returned with Helena. Will hauled Franklin 1 cart load wood, some he had sawed and split by the road. Fourth Sunday, weather cloudy and cold. Franklin, Elgin, Eliza Miller, and Helena went to Sharpsburg in the sleigh on the bare ground, as the small quantity of snow and that very light rendered no service to the sleigh. They returned in the evening with Eleonora Miller with them. Elizabeth spent the day with Miss B and myself and dined with us. She returned home in the sleigh after they came from Sharpsburg. The river is covered pretty much over with ice, except a curved channel for the boat to pass. Will reports 11 lambs. The thermometer has ranged between 4 and 8 degrees below freezing point for the last 3 or 4 days. Miss B is still confined to her room, this sitting up and her strength. Ned and Jupe, as you can imagine, in the ferry boat, a very small business doing. The fifth, Monday, weather cold, and Med and Jupe are indentured. So he usually tells the difference between somebody who's a free, quote, Negro and somebody who is his slave. So Ned and Jupe understand they don't get paid. A little, here and there. But welcome those who just joined us. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm trying to move through this because we do have a few more to go until we get back to another narrative. So again, not so emotionally stimulating this is, but it's good to take a little break and kind of look at the business side of slavery. So fifth Monday, weather cold, cloudy. Miss Nath came early. Miss Eliza and Lane Miller here. Murph and Enoch went to cleaning wheat. Eliza Miller walked home after breakfast, so he don't give people breaks at all. Miss Nath went to sewing. Will went to the woods to cutting. Morrison called, says him and his son is cutting wood, wants 2 loads of wood, one for himself and one for his son. Daphne cleaning out the ice house. Captain Ashbury returned. Again, his house is kind of in a situation where he's always having visitors. So we read about Miss Fry. This cottage, known as the Stone Cottage, was situated on the Potomac River near the ferry landing. To cave up was to generate grain, which had been beaten or trod from the chaff and rake or similar tool. And Captain Ashbury of Shepherdstown was a friend and business associate of Franklin Blackford. It goes on to say, from Washington last night, Ned and Jupe in the boat received a letter dated Washington the 2nd, INT, from M. Swigart. He loves shorthand, so some of the stuff I don't know what he's saying. By post, I had wrote him 6 days since by mail. 6 Tuesday, weather has moderated, the morning calm and pleasant. A young man named Mitch Starr drowned was seating near the lift lock broke through the ice. He was a shoemaker to trade and connected of the Croker's family. Murph has gone to Mooma's mill with a load of wheat. So this dude must have been playing on the ice, the river that froze over, fell in and drowned. I suppose he's a European the way and he doesn't even say it with any sentiment. He's just reporting the cold hard facts. Franklin gone on ahead to have the gray mare shod and see the wheat measured at the mill. Will cleaning out the ice house. Ashbury, Elgin, and Edith getting out ice to fill Franklin ice house. The Shepherdstown people are getting out ice commenced yesterday. Miss Nath sewing. Helena, Ellen Miller, and W.M. gone down to J.K.'s. Enoch went to the mill with a bag of corn and brought buckwheat flour to amount of 3 bushels. Buckwheat which is to be sent to Mr. Stubbs. Franklin returned through Esmoma's receipt for 55 bushels, 11 wheat Dell this day. There is now in the mill 182 bushels and 23 Ws. Had the horses shod at Miller's shop, Murph brought home a load wood from clearing and took the wagon body full of the old straw and stuff from the ice house to the barnyard. Nedham Jupe in the boat. Still a very small business at the ferry. Receipts are very small. I guess he's disappointed. I think we read earlier that he bought the ferry. He might have thought it would have been a profitable venture, so he's kind of disappointed. That's because every time he keeps saying very, very small business. So I guess he's not making a return on his investment as he anticipated. But we're also seeing what it takes to run a business. All of the having to keep account of what's going in and what's coming out so that you don't fall behind, and so it takes what we would think is boring, so that you can, again, when you balance your books, everything is accounted for. It says 7th Wednesday, weather changed this morning, cloudy and damp cold air from the east, commenced hauling ice from the river to the ice house. Murph and Enoch with the wagon and Will in the house breaking. So I didn't know. So that's interesting that they were harvesting the ice and making it a business. Franklin was at the river assisting to load and getting out ice. Nicholas Martin, Mrs. Fry's son, and a German sent William down to inform J. Node I wanted him to haul Morrison 2 cords of wood to Sharpsburg, which he said he would do. Joseph Goff called to engage to cut wood, directed him when to cut. I wrote out Morrison and J. Goff cutting, J. Node loading the second load cord wood for Morrison, requesting him to haul one for the Negro George. Helena and Ellen Miller went over to S-Town, gave Helena, 62 1/2 to purchase some small articles. 12 wagons load of ice put in the house this day. Miss Eaton came this afternoon. J.K. hauled 3 cords of wood to Sharpsburg, 2 for Morrison and 1 for Negro George to Coon the tailor. That's interesting. I don't know what to Coon the tailor is. But again, for those who have joined us, I know this is kind of spread out. It is also said in this narrative that he wasn't like a quote overseer. So basically everybody had their assignments and there was no overseer on the plantation. He hired quote free blacks who were also in the town, as well as other poor indentured Europeans who were in the town, and he kind of gave people their assignments and let them do it. So this is again a narrative that is giving a different face to slavery as it related to, yes, some people were being pimped for their labor and not being paid, and then there were those who were free who were being paid. And in this instance, he wasn't really one for beating often. So 8th Thursday, weather morning, soft and thawing. So this is why in a lot of the narratives, they would say they would pray for a good master, quote unquote. They would hear of who was a good master and want to go to him so that their light or their labor would be easier. 8th Thursday, weather morning, soft and thawing, rained smartly in the early part of last night, resume hauling ice. J. Node came after breakfast with his wagon and joining in the hauling, have hauled 13 loads and 12 yesterday and 25 in the house. Say about 23 good loads as some haul this day was not full, about the middle of the afternoon. And they're saying the free Negro George cut the wood, sold the wood to one Coon, a tailor. So I don't know what one Coon is, but a Joseph Node hauled the wood to Coon. So I don't know if Coon was the person's name, but that's very interesting. It says finished, page 17, finish here and then commence filling the ice house at the ferry house, put in 4 loads. Franklin has engaged at the ice Martin, Shellman, Israel Fry, a German, and Indians. Mrs. Naff, Mrs. Eaton, and Eleanor Miller here has the appearance of clearing this morning. The wind is from the northwest, has been quite warm. Most of this day thawed pretty much at what may freeze. Some this night, Ned and Jupe in the boat, very limited business. Will is pounding the ice. 9th Friday, weather changed, somewhat colder. Saturday on after breakfast for Boonburg. Met Mary Miller and Miss Campbell between home and Sharpsburg, arrived in Boonesboro, 12 o'clock after having met S. Bentz and his wife. I paid Lawson Welp $222, the balance of G&O and S, Bentz and Co. I guess he had a bill, and took their receipt in full, which states $22.66. Paid Samuel Cost AC in full, $11.87 and a half. I guess they had half a cent because he keeps talking about half a cent. They had half a cent then. I bought some goods in the amount of $15.09 on credit. So it's funny how he has money, but he's buying goods on credit. That's interesting. Not this credit, but I guess just credit to the individual store owner. I dined at Doc Smith and sat out from there 1.5 after 3 o'clock. Called at Colonel Miller, bought a hold on. Bought what did he buy? Where is he now? Bought a PL of worm destroying medicine. Paid 25 cents and 12 and one half at Buckhart's for my mare. The hands report 20 loads of ice put in the lower house and 2 loads more brought up to this house. Murph drunk. Him and Carolyn has behaved bad. Jay knowed all day with his wagon and team Martin Nicholas, Israel, the German Murph, Will and Enoch, all working at the ice. Ned and Jupe. Come on, everybody. Where's Ned and Jupe? Ned and Jupe in the boat. So he's just, again, he's like tabs on everybody. Everybody comes and reports to him, and he writes it all down in his little ledger here. And by the way, they said they found this ledger in, I believe, the location. They didn't know it was there. He wrote it for his own internal purposes. And now we're reading it because we're all up in his business. 10th Saturday, weather changed, colder, still froze hard last night. My goods brought by the stage charges 25 cents. And he talking about the boat is doing bad. Isn't the river froze up? But anyway, and Ned and Jupe is on the water, some freezing water. Miss Nate went off home after breakfast. Murphy and Enoch put the 2 loads of ice brought up yesterday. Man, his spelling is just jacking me up, man. His spelling is crazy. Evening in the house, which will be 25 wagon loads in the house. They then went to hauling firewood, hauled 4 loads. Will peeling up plank. Franklin and J.K. gone to Sharpsburg. Patrick Welch called and proved an account against Charles Nurse. I requested him to give an answer as respects his keeping the house in Shepherdstown. Ann Miller and Miss Eaton here. This day has continued cold, very little thawed. Ned and Jupe in the ferry boat, a very small business. Morrison and his son cutting wood, none other of the cutters for the last 2 days. I remained in the office all this day. Weather rough and out, pleasant out. It's rough and unpleasant, so he gets to stay in the office while everybody's working. And another thing I noticed, the women name he usually call is the visitors, but I know that people are always at his house, and you don't really hear him talking about the servants who are not necessarily making him money. Like he's always talking about Ned and Jupe. Everybody who he's mentioning is connected with his business. The ones who are cutting the wood, the ones who you have to pay, Ned and Jupe in the boat, Murph and Enoch. But somebody's running the home where all of these people keep coming to. So you could see what he was about. He could care less, it seems, about talking about what doesn't affect his bottom line or his pocket. But that's just my observation. I'm gonna keep rocking out with this. It says 10th. He's been in the office all day. 11th, Sunday. Weather rough, windy, and cold. The ice moving, starting by the wind blowing. Gave Martin an order to Nicholas's wife for a pair of gloves, priced 25 cents. Elizabeth and child and JK's wife and little son came, dined with us, and returned to their homes in the evening. Helena, Ann Miller, and William went down to the lower house with them. So they're saying Brookhart kept a livery stable in Boonesboro, which was often patronized by Blackford, and Patrick Welch rented a house in Shepherdstown owned by Blackford. So this is a businessman all day long. This is what I'm receiving. It says, well, WM finger pain and kept him from sleep. He spelled sleep SLEAP. All the early part of the night, Ned made no return. 12th, Monday. Weather continues cold, ice still moving slowly on, which the past night has increased. Miss Nave came this morning, half after 8 o'clock. I mean, who goes to somebody's house like 8:15 in the morning? Miss Fry called to see about wood and to know if she could keep the house for a year. Murph and Enoch to getting out wheat. Will shilling a bag of corn, delivered 3 bushels of buckwheat for which we have the flour last week. Miss Eaton left here after breakfast for Shepherdstown. Nicholas came, left him a mouthing old bacon, 4 W's. Asked him concerning the array, I guess that's what it is, or the affray between him and Mrs. Fry. Franklin stole from Webb. Will brought over in the cart. He took over a bag of corn. The two free Negroes came this evening to assume their wood cutting. I refused them to grind on my stone. Right, he's so nice, right? Ned came up this evening, but small receipts. So the free quote Negroes came to do some work, but he didn't want them to, I guess, grind corn. Which again, people had to do all of this stuff by a level of what we would think is an antiquated system, but many of us in this day and time are returning back to learning how to process and prepare your own food. Very interesting and important stuff. 13th, Tuesday, weather cloud. Yo, has he ever heard of labor laws? My goodness, this dude don't give a break. 13th, Tuesday, weather cloudy in the morning, about 12 hailed and snow. JK came up and assisted to the butcher to steer. CK and Janet with her babe came in. Mrs. Cheney's little carriage. The carriage returned immediately. Gave Franklin a peck of hominy corn, which Martin shelled and pounded and brick to close his fireplace. Will took over in the cart to hide and to bring a bag of cornmeal. Murph and Enoch getting out wheat. So the superstores wasn't there. Like each person had a level of business of which each person patronized. And so the wealth circulated in the community as opposed to outside corporations hoarding all of the processes that deal with different aspects of business, and the wealth just goes to somebody who is nameless and faceless. Like you, at this point, they knew who they were doing business with. It were their neighbors, their families, their friends. So this is again, we're looking at the ground floor of how to restore a level of economics, but not on the backs of slaves. Definitely not. It says, okay. Okay, report 1,700 sheaves yesterday and this day. CK sick after his arrival. The ground is covered an inch and better with hail and snow. Ned and Jupe in the boat. Very small receipts, very little crossing. This is winter weather. Like who would really want to keep crossing? Especially if you know how they would talk and they heard the dude got drowned. People would probably be suspect of hopping in boats and crossing frozen things. I'm just saying. That could be possibly why you are being affected in this way. 14th, Wednesday. He said Valentine's, I guess Wednesday, William's birthday, morning cloudy. JK came up, cut up the beef and returned. Murphy and Enoch getting out wheat. Will assisted about the beef cutting wood short, etc. The lock keeper from the lock above call says Rogers noticed 2 logs which I have in the canal. His name is Germ. Franklin brought his wife and child up in his sleigh, but poor sleigh not snow sufficient is thawing this afternoon. Will took down the hams of bacon, which he had been smoked, and I have dipped in weak lye and then sprinkled well with ground black pepper. I put 3 W's up on the ham. So this is again, anyway. I'll talk about that in a minute. Janet wrote a note. Go ahead. A note to the doctor. I wrote an order for 25 W's of sugar and 3 W's of raisin to S. Benz to be sent by the stage driver this night. Ned and Jupe in the boat, very small receipts. J.W. Roger was an official at one of the dams of Chesapeake and Ohio Canal above Ferry Hill. Despite the lock, this is the notes here by the editor. Despite the lock keeper's warning, Blackford failed to remove the locks, and on March 11th, Rogers himself called on Blackford and threatened action. So Blackford had a little legal action there. Page 19. Like I said, I'm going to try to move through. Page 19, 15th, Thursday, weather morning, cloudy, rain and snow. Some little. Catherine and Mary Miller came, wrote a note, and sent Enoch to Corbin's for some apples. Murph hauled Franklin a load wood. Then him and Will went to getting out wheat. Miss Naif is still here sewing, making some shirts for myself. That's his seamstress. Sent Isaiah to S-Town, gave him 37 1/2 to purchase brooms and buttons. He returned and brought 12 1/2 cents and would not pass. Catherine and Mary dined with us and returned home in the evening. Enoch returned, brought 3/4 barrels of apples. Reports that all are well. 1/2 bushel of apples from G. Father Corbin's hand is sore. Ned and Jupe in the boat, still doing little. 16th, Friday, weather morning, cloudy, dark, cold, unpleasant. Has hailed last night and is hailing and freezing through the day. Priscilla Miller has came yesterday, snowed and hailed this afternoon for an hour briskly. Cleared up about sunset and then came on severe blow of wind, almost a hurricane. Oh my goodness, I can't with him. A hurricane, Haiican, which drifted the snow that had so left lately fell and continued to blow nearly all night and was very cold. Made much ice on the river. Listen to this. After he have Ned and Jupe out on the boat 7 days a week. Here is what he reports on the 16th Friday. Made much ice on the river. Ned and Jupe is reported to be sick. Wow. Why I gotta be reported to be sick? When everybody else reports stuff, he notes it as thing. Why Ned and Jupe is reported? Why they just can't be sick? I mean, you don't even want to go outside, but Ned and Jupe is on cold water and they're reported to be sick. I'm sorry. No return of this day's business. Murph and Enoch. That's all he cares about. They reported to be sick and he don't know what the receipts are. Murph and Enoch and Will at the barn getting out wheat and et cetera, et cetera. So you see, you're nothing. You're just what I'm using to get what I want. And even though he's not physically abusing them, he is so disconnected that all that matters is you better have my money, basically. Let me continue here. 17th Saturday, weather cold and windy. The past night has been the coldest this winter. There's 2 or 3 inches of snow, hail, and ice on the ground this morning. Murph reports 2,600 sheaves of wheat got out since Monday. How is he pulling on? Where's he getting all this wheat from? I guess they already harvested it and now they're beating it from the stalk or something. Because like where are they doing all this work if it's cold, snowy, and windy? Sent Will to S-Town for some articles to store, for which he paid $1.72 and a half. Assisted over with a wagon, then cut off some wood at the house. Doc Smith came and dined and returned home. Franklin and Captain Ashbury and William gone to the sleigh to Sharpsburg. Murph and Enoch have been raking off and caving up the wheat. Miss Naif came home, sent Isaiah with her on my mare. Isaac Widow's call, wants meat, bread, and money. Gave him none. Negro George came, gave him $1 to purchase a hat. Murph hauled 2 loads wood, one of which for Franklin did not finish caving up the wheat. Ned came up this evening. 18th, Sunday, weather clear with some little wind. JK's wife rode up in the morning and spent the day. Franklin and Joseph Noel went in the sleigh to G Father's. Elizabeth and children came up after dinner, spent an hour, I think that's his daughter, and returned home, as did JK's wife. Priscilla Miller went home, Janet and Babe here. Ned and Jupe in the boat. Well, they wasn't sick that long because they were reported to be sick 2 days before the Friday, and by Sunday, they're back in the boat. They could have dead from pneumonia. He's still going to want his report. 19th, Monday, weather clear, more moderated. Franklin had a horse in his sleigh to Hedricks. Lick Lydia sent to me again for money, gave him none. 4 men called to get wood to cut. Mr. Shea called, wants sand for the furnace. Will and Martin went to the woods to cut shingle timber. Ellen Heiser came to rent a room, says she lives at Mrs. Lynn's. Sent Caroline down to assist Elizabeth, Murph, and Enoch clearing up wheat. I rode out to the clearing, Widows putting up his wood. Morrison and son, the 2 Negroes, Nicholas, all cutting. Brian got sand. Franklin got a beehive from the Corban and one from Hedrick Murph. A beehive in the winter? Put the wheat through the fan the first time. Ned and Jupe in the boat. Small receipts. Has thawed pretty much. I guess he's talking about the lake or the river. 1 second. 20th, Tuesday, weather clear. Rather pleasant. Jeanette and child with Helena and little Negro. And, wow, we heard about a little Negro after reading 20 plus pages. Weather clear, rather pleasant. Jeanette and child with Helena and little Negro Ann set out after 10 o'clock for Boonesborough. Franklin driving the carriage, to whom I gave Stagdon and Stokes account to hand to Schaefer, the tavern keeper. Gave Helena $1 and Jeanette, Meeman to get some articles at Bentz's store. Murph sat out for Muma's mill with a load of wheat. It has J Node's black man in the team. Dr. Quigley, chill, that sounds like one of the baby's cartoons. Dr. Quigley called, wants money for Mrs. Swearingen, received a letter by last night's mail from the Reverend Mr. Johns asking for money, the balance of his account, $82.40, as stated again. Will and Martin cutting shingle timber. He reports 3 additional hands joined the wood cutting. Isaac Widow's call says he has been cutting wood, paid him $1. He wants everything. Murph returned from Muma's mill where he dealt 52 barrels and 41 Ws of wheat. Franklin returned at sunset, has changed very clothes, brought sundry goods for J.A. and S. Benz and Co. Amount $4.65 and a half. Murph hauled a load of wood, net and Jupe in the boat, tolerable business. Oh my goodness, for the first time, tolerable. Right. 21st of Wednesday. Weather clear and very cold. The last night, the coldest this winter. The ink froze for the first time in the office. The river is closed this morning with ice. Murph and Enoch loaded the wagon with wheat, and Murph sat on for Muma's mill, directed Will to assist Ned to cut the ice to pass the boat. Negro Will belongs to Grove. Call gave him wood to cut. He is to commence tomorrow. Franklin called to get change for a $10 note. Has brought a horse from Emirate at $45. Between him, Ashbury, Elgin has formed a partnership to run a boat with marketing. Martin Shellman. Call is pretty much disguised with liquor. Disused with liquor. Murph returned from the mill, brought brand for Franklin. He dealt 52 bushels and 49 Ws of wheat. Says he had the horseshoes roughed at Cribzer's shop. Murph is pretty well done. Says he got it at the Ferry house. Ned and Jupe in the boat. Small receipts. Back to small receipts again. So it says here, Shay was a workman at the furnace, belonging to John M. Bryan at the Antonym Works. So he's giving everybody's name. He's giving names and places. Again, for those who are not necessarily business-minded and might find this a little bit boring, this stuff is important. Why is it important? Because anybody who's going to go into business, go ahead, knows that you have to keep track of what goes in. As I said before, I keep saying it because we keep saying, cooperative economics, but then our attention span, because we weren't necessarily on this side of the operation, our side of the operation was more work without pay, no necessarily value for what it is that you were doing. And you really didn't see this part of the conversation. You understand what I'm saying? And you really didn't have to worry about it. You just showed up, and then you asked for things. You bet, Master, I need this, Master, I need that. For parents, this is what they would do. In this particular space and time. Of course, after this space and time, we do see industry by our foreparents, but we've kind of fallen back into this mode of I need this and I need that. So again, it says Dr. John Quigley was Mrs. Henry T. Van Swingin's son-in-law and business agent. He saw payment for Mrs. Swearingen's share in the Ferry receipts. So I forgot. Maybe he went in half on this Ferry thing, and this is why he's beefing all the time about it, because he's not getting what he feels should be making it worthwhile. The Reverend Mr. L.H. Johns was the rector of the Episcopal Church in Sharpsburg, of which the Blackfords were communicants. So he's telling you who the Reverend was, or so-called Reverend. So-called. Hope you guys are all doing well. I'm trying to move through this to catch up from some days that I've been missing in action here. Let's see, 22nd Thursday, Washington, the anniversary of his birth. The Shepherdstown folks are making some music and firing some platoons of small arms. The weather is considerably moderate, clear, and calm. Henry Ray, so this must be February here, because it has to be February. Henry Ray, James H. Elgin, and Franklin called. Elgin confessed judgment on a warrant which Patrick Welch had issued and served on him for $26.13 and 34 and a half, which Franklin suspended for him for 6 months, cost 58 cents, not paid, me 25 cents for the judgment. And because I think he's also dude was everything. He was also, I think he was also a notary as well. 25 cents for the judgment and supersedes. Murph and Enoch getting out wheat. Will gone to clearing to assist Martin to cut shingle timber. William rode down to JK's with sugar and coffee and beef. Franklin rode up looking for little Negro John, who he suspects for pilfering, which some pieces of money, which I learned the other day was small bits of money. A letter from Henry B. to CK came by the last night's mail, and one from Miss Bell to Helena. Franklin says he bought Elgin's debt from Welch. Will reports that Grove's Negro man, Will, was cutting Ned and Jupe in the boat. Let me get some water here. 23rd, Friday. Weather, morning, cold and cloudy. Miss B had a bad pain in her stomach and bowels. JK came up from the wagon. Body took his bag. Says he bought a horse from Derrick, gave $45 in his coat. Murph and Enoch getting out wheat. That's all they did. Like work. Will gone to the clearing to cut shingle. Miss Williams' son, Charles, came over. Two Scotchmen called on. One of them wanted to rent part of my house in Sharpstown. He says he works with Price in a factory. The others lived in Reynolds Mill, named Jack and Mr. and Mrs. Hargrove and Mrs. Quigley. Called, supped with us, and returned. So they just be popping up at people's house, eating their dinner, and then bouncing. It has thawed some in the middle of this day. The evening turned cold. I have received my balto, whatever that is, regularly this week. Some corn, gross crossing from Bryan at the forge. Will reports 12 lads now living. Ned and Jupe in the ferry boat continue to do very small business. It's something I wanted to say and it skipped my mind, so I suppose it will come back. There was something I wanted to say, but I'll continue. 24th, Saturday. Weather continues cold. It is clear and thawing, some where the sun shines. The wind, which is light, is cold. Franklin has taken the wagon and team put his horse in before on the offside. Him and Ashbury went to the woods for a load fire, wood. Murph and Enoch getting out wheat. Will in the clearing with Martin cutting shingle timber until dinner. When they quit, Franklin hauled 2 loads of wood for himself and 1 cord for me. We helped load. It was cut by free Negroes, which is 3 cords of their cutting haul, 2 of which brought home, and 1 taken in Sharpsburg for George Snavely, hauled by J.K. Node, Ned and Jupe in the boat. Sunday. Weather continues cold this morning. Is clear and calm. Elizabeth spent part of day with us, dined and returned in the evening. Franklin here for a few minutes. Miss Williams' son Charles here most of the day. Helena absent with her sister in Boonesboro. Ned and Jupe in the boat, small business. They were saying he was a judge. He was a justice of the peace. So this is him beefing about people owing him money for doing that job. It says here, 26 Monday. Weather morning. Please stop. Weather morning, clear and cold. The river covered with pretty strong ice. Sent Enoch down to JK's. He sat out with his wagon very early for Sharpsburg. I wished him to do some business for me in Hagerstown. Will gone with Martin to cut shingle timber. Murph and Enoch getting out wheat in the barn. Wrote a letter to the Reverend Mr. John stating that I could pay his account in Cano money, whatever that is. Franklin got away the stove and pipe. Enoch hauled it down for him. And you have to remember, they have to be cutting a lot of wood too, not only for the shingles, but also it's so cold that they're wood burning stoves. So they're consuming a lot of forest tree, if we want to call it that, for all of this heating. Even if he said it's so cold inside that it excuse me, tell her to bring that back. Bring it back. The ink froze, so you can imagine how cold it was indoors. Even much so, how cold it was in the slave cabins. It says here, weather morning clear and cold. The river covered with pretty strong ice. Sent Enoch. Okay, I read that part. Murph and Enoch. Who did this? Sorry about that. Enoch called it down for him directly will to butcher the calf, which is 3 weeks and 2 days old. It is from the red white faced cow, a heifer calf received by this night's mail by my vault and Richard's paper, and a letter from Henry dated the 23rd requesting me to send him money, $70 to pay his board and tuition. So I guess that's his son. Ned and Jupe in the boat. The river continues covering with ice. Cold weather. 27th, Tuesday, weather cold, cloudy. Patrick Welch called to say that he would not keep my house in Shepherdstown. Says G. Price will rent it. Received the sugar cane came from the stage last night. Suppose 25W N.O. sent by S. Benz, Will, and M. Shellman sawing shingle timber in the clearing. All the people cutting there except windows. He is absent. I wrote to Sharpsburg. BOT a vest or bought a vest pattern from McKay. MD McKay Tribbins and ribbon paid $2.94 and 3/4. Deluni cut it and a pair of pantaloons, because that's what they used to call pants. Pants is short for pantaloons. Of the cashmere BOT, whatever that is, at Dunesburg. Mrs. Nafe promises to come on Monday next to so had my mare's shoe removed. Murph and Enoch getting out wheat in the barn. Ned and Indians. What happened to Ned and Jupe? Jupe is on vacation. Yeah, right. Tuesday, Monday, Ned and Jupe was in the boat. Ned and Indians in the ferry boat. A milding business done. 27. So I'm wondering, at this point, they're saying that the natives were around and they were still, after they done took over their land, to a certain capacity, interfacing. This is another thing that we see, that there's a lot of interfacing with different sections. That's what I wanted to say, and I had kind of forgot. There was a lot of interfacing, and even though he's a quote unquote European, he didn't run around calling people necessarily white or black. He would classify quote Negro, free Negro. You usually don't really hear him saying anything about a slave, except that this is his personal journal, so he would kind of know who was a slave, who was not. But he does always note when it's a Scottish man or English man, or he didn't say any Frenchman, a German. He always names them by the origin of where they originated. And again, like we see, the laws began to change, and the way in which people referred to the Europeans changed, and it became this black and white thing. Before this point, you were really, if you were Irishman, you were kind of really low on the totem pole, So again, we're seeing this illustrated in the way in which he's choosing to identify people. But anyway, at any rate, let's continue. 27th, Wednesday, weather cold. Nope, I did that already. 28th, Wednesday, weather clear and more pleasant. It's thawing after the sun was up to some height. Murph and Enoch finished getting out the crop of the wheat. They reported 2,800 sheaves at the last, and before 27, the first cleaning up. The next 26 in all, 8,100 sheaves, which average about 3 bushels of wheat to the 100 sheaves, which is considered a poor yield. C Node and WM rode down to JK Nodes. He's absent, gone to Penta with his wagon, removing a family from the forge. Helena is absent at Boonesboro with her sister Smith. Margaret Fry called to say her mother wanted half a cord of hauled wood directing Murph to haul her the wood and haul home 2 loads. Of Nicholas Call got a side of bacon, 13W, whatever that is, has been cutting wood, him and his wife. Brother Negro Caroline is laid up with an injury which she received by a fall on Sunday while playing in the barnyard. Ned and Jupe, of course, as always, in the boat. It says Henry V.H. Blackford was attending the Mercersburg Academy. Blackford later paid an additional $100 on his tuition. Now he's up to March 1838. So we was in February. He's up to March right now, and this is page 23 if you're following along. First Thursday, weather moderated, the morning clear. Our neighborhood weatherman, man. Afternoon clouds over. Miss Fry has gone to Sharpsburg to see after a house. Murphy and Enoch commenced cleaning wheat. Will gone down to clearing to assist Martin to cut and saw shingle timber. Franklin brought me a letter from Sharpsburg Post Office from John Colburn, Washington City, on the subject of cement stone. Wrote a note to Mr. Mance respecting the ferrages of wagons taking corn to forge. Likewise, a note to Doc Parent to call and see the girl Caroline. Lent because Caroline fell. Lent Franklin my patriot paper for Bushhorde Herbert, who wishes to see the account of the duel fought by Graves and Silly. And the duel, okay, we saw that in the what was that Roots remix, the reloaded Roots. And someone asked, do you think they were really dueling? So okay, here right here in March 1838, he is testifying that someone wants to Bush Herbert, who wishes to see the account of the duel. Like these people would be like, oh, meet me outside. And then they would like that kind of fight to the finish, which is crazy. But anyway, Doc Perrin called and prescribed for Carolyn salts and the rub the swollen parts with sprain in which Indian pepper is strapped, Ned and Jupe in the boat. This day I am informed the mail commenced crossing every day, 3 trips with stage per week and on 3 on horseback. Second Friday, weather. I also wanted to say in my thesis, not my thesis, my hypothesis of looking at slavery as a domestic violence type institution, where if you look at the model of domestic violence and the damage that is done, and if you could kind of wrap your head around it, if you were John Blackford and someone is, and you are, quote, the parent, the one who's responsible for all, but yet still people are being exploited, and you're reading all of what he's saying, that's not really in the forefront of his mind. That's not really in the forefront of his mind. What's in the forefront of his mind is daily operations, and what if you sick, that's a liability. If something is a liability, all he cares about as long as you're around is that you become an asset to him. And so in the domestic violence situation, with a parent to a child or elder to a younger individual, you kind of see that I don't identify with you. I don't remember that. A lot of times you will see people trying to speak to their parents, and because their whole narrative is totally different, the injury it takes up the most of your world, right? If you are the abused. But to the abuser, it's just a moment in time for them. It's not that real for them. And so when you have the conversation between quote black and white, or you have the conversation between those who are the oppressors and the oppressed, why a lot of people are like, oh, you're trying to guilt trip me, on the oppressor side. Oh, you're trying to do all of these things, because they have been disconnected from what actually happened. You understand? And because you are on the receiving end, it is more real in your mind. Beating somebody is something in passing, but for those who were being inflicted this type of it was everything to them. So, second Friday, weather. It has begun to snow before daylight and continued. Now 10 o'clock by spells, Murphy and Enoch cleaning up wheat. Will sent out the clearing, and he returned as it continued to snow. Assisted Murph to load a wagon with wheat, which he sat off with for the mill. Enoch took a note over to Mr. Webb, requesting him to exchange some money for me. He bought a bag of cornmeal and my balto, whatever his balto is. What is he getting, drunk or something? Patriot of the 28th and March the 1st, which was yesterday. This came by the new arrangement of the mail, or his newspapers. He's always looking for his newspapers. Sent Enoch the second time to Mr. Webb, who has exchanged $50 for me, gave me Haggard's town notes for a small paper, Alliance shin plasters. Murphy returned from Moomas Mill, where he dealt 64 B's or bushels, I guess, of 41 W's of wheat. Brother Franklin, a load of wood from the clearing as he returned, brought the torchlight and was pretty tolerably drunk. Ned and Jupe in the boat, the business light. And he complains oftentimes about his workers or his enslaved people being drunk. But we also learned earlier, a few episodes ago, that he was the one oftentimes that would be giving him the whiskey and would giving them the smokes. So it says who's this? The editor says, for some unknown reason, Blackford refused to sell cement stone to Colburn, as he had earlier refused to sell Michael Swigart, also of Washington. William Jordan Graves, native of Kentucky, Whig member of the United States House of Representatives from 1835 to 1841, killed Jonathan Kelley, 1802. I think they're going to talk about the duel. 1802 to 1838, native of New Hampshire and Democratic member of the House of Representatives from Maine, 1837 to 1838, in a duel at Turner Cliffs Bridge near Bladensburg, Maryland, on February 24th, 1838. A committee of the House investigated the duel and made a long report back to the House, which took no further action. So again, I think I forget who asked me about it during what we was talking about. So yeah, this is what these dudes was really doing. So they're saying that this William Gordon Graves killed Jonathan Kelly in a duel. And then it goes on to say Carolyn, a slave girl, had fallen and injured herself while playing in Blackford's barn on February 25th. And they made notes to tell us that if enslaved individual or if a free individual got hurt on his property or under his jurisdiction, he would look for, some kind of treatment for them. And this is reflected in him calling the doctor and trying to tend to Caroline's injuries. So let's continue. It says here, the third Saturday, weather clear and pleasant. I wrote to Sharpsburg after writing a letter to Henry and enclosed $70 to him, but not meeting with Mr. Bringbagger. I brought the letter home again. Will assisted Martin to Shaw single timber. Murph finished cleaning up the wheat and gone to Muma's mill with it. He lost a bushel yesterday on the road, settled with Samuel Muma and paid him $6.41.5, the balance due his brother John's estate. Took his receipt on the account. I dined at Colonel Miller's. Murph returned from the mill sometime after night. Dealt 52 bushels wheat as per receipt, which is the balance of the corp of the wheat. So when did these people really see their families? Because they're working literally 7 days a week. Murph and Enoch in the what you call it? Murph and Enoch in the so I guess this dude is not really quote religious because they didn't even get their Sunday worship off. Like they're working straight through. When did they see their families? Did they have families, or did he really even care? And if they're not fathering their families, then who is? Sunday, fourth Sunday, weather, a large white frost. This morning, the day clear and pleasant. I rode to Sharpsburg after breakfast with an expectation of meeting Mr. Bringbarger, in which I was disappointed. Attended in the, oh, look, a church. I just spoke about it. I didn't even know he was going to talk about, but oh, look, something popped up. He attended the Episcopal Church at 11 o'clock, where he heard Mr. Johns deliver a sermon. Returned and dined at Colonel Miller's with Mrs. Hoffenmeyer and Miss Campbell at 2 o'clock. Attended the German Reformed Church. Oh, he must have felt in the spirit this day, where Mr. Hoffenmeyer delivered a sermon. Catherine Miller is confined to bed with sickness. After seeing her in her room, I returned home, where I found J.K.'s wife and Elizabeth, who had been spending a short time with Miss B, sent J.K.'s wife on horseback home, the roads being so muddy. Enoch and Isaiah had been very rude with W.M. Likewise, Ned and Jupe in the boat have a tolerable business. And he doesn't say what the rude is. But one of their things was they did not like Negroes being, quote, obstinate or not tolerable to their estimation. So you were supposed to like your servitude. You're supposed to like their treatment of you. You're supposed to like it, and you're supposed to smile. So the fifth Monday, the weather morning, raining, snowing, and hailing had fallen smart snow before daylight, and it continued to be a fall until afternoon when it broke off in the west. I finished my letter to Henry, which would be his son, wrote one to Mr. Colburn in Washington, sent them to the office by Will, who took a lock in Rickhart to have repaired. He brought the Patriot of Friday and Saturday, 2 and 3, the stage cross and recrossing with the mail in the early part of this day. Like, this is, oh my goodness. Where's his, anyway, Isaac Widows called, paid him $2.25 on account of wood cutting. Murphy and Enoch brought a load of wood this morning from the clearing, which he reports the fifth court from Free John and George Cutting received a note from Helena and sent by return of stage a note and a bundle to Janet. Sent Isaiah to Sharpsburg for Miss Naif and a note to Mr. Rayner for old horse. The boy brought the horse he lost. A note, Mr. R wrote me Miss Naif came as it was, getting dusk. Ned and Jute in the boat. Poor business. He's crying about business in the boat. This time he says, usually he says little business. This time it's poor business. Hold on one second. All right, thank you for your patience. I had to check on those babies. They was kind of quiet. You know, when babies is quiet, you got to check on them. The 6th Tuesday, weather morning cloudy, the snow and hail that fell Sunday night nearly all dissolved, which has made the roads very soft and unpleasant traveling. Of course, it wasn't like paved what we know today. It's muddy, it's outside, it's not concrete or asphalt. Martin Call says he is splitting his timber, sent Will to S Town with 10 bushels of oats to have chopped and 2.5 bushels of corn to have ground for bread and to have 2 bushels of rye that is in a mill chopped for the 2 old horses. Mrs. Nafe sewing at a pair of pantaloons for me. Received a note from D. Snively in answer to one I wrote him respecting the house. Will brought the lock and put it on the cellar door. He brought screws and muslin, paid 25 cents. J-No brought up my wagon, body which he borrowed. Murph and Enoch clearing out the stables and fodder hangs. CK has gone to Sharpsburg this evening, rode Old Pony, a marriage at the Ferry house this evening by Mr. Hargrave. The horse mail crossed and recrossed. The ice is decreasing smartly the last 2 days. Franklin hauled a load of wood with team Ned and Jupe in the boat. Poor Ned and Jupe. They don't get a day off. 7th Wednesday. Weather morning snowing which has commenced some time in the night, came down very fast and is quite moderate. Sent Will to S Town, brought me some trimmings from my vest, paid 37 1/2. Helena arrived in the mail, coached about 10 o'clock, brought a piece of muslin, 30 yards, from Betsil's and Co. Cost $3.75. Keep in mind, muslin is cotton. You understand? So they are monetizing that which the indentured servants are, or not indentured servants, sorry, enslaved peoples are picking. He's in Virginia, but cotton country was, when they had the whole cotton boom, everybody moved further, to the south. And so they take the cotton and it comes back as muslin. So imagine what it takes to produce 30 yards of muslin. And 30 yards of muslin for $3.75. Very, very interesting. So they're just really paying, they're not paying for the production cost. Well, they're not paying for the growing cost. They're only paying for the production and the transferring, weaving it into fabric, of which they can run around, dress up fancy, and sit down and eat food. You see how the whole thing was interconnected, but I'll continue. Daft taken 3, because every time they come to somebody's house, they gotta look fly. You can't just keep coming to the person's house, especially his house where everybody keeps visiting. You can't just keep coming in the same old rags. So it was a social society where you had to impress, you was keeping up with the Joneses, so to say. You had to impress your neighbors. You had to have the newest material. You had to have the newest hats. And so you see, he's getting fitted right now. But anyway, that's wild. 30 yards of muslin for $3.75. Where they do that at? But I'm sorry. Daffin taking 3, Murph and Enoch clearing out stables. Mr. Renner's son called with a note from his father requesting payment for the horse, $15, which I paid him in small notes. Miss Fry sent for to see Daff. Sent Will with a note to Dr. Parent to come see Daff, who was very ill. He brought me a letter from John Colburn, Washington, on the subject of cement stone. Isaac Widows called, sent by him a note which I wrote Samuel M. Hitt to put in the post office. Heard of old Aunt Schroeder's death and young Shaw in Virginia, sent by return of stage Minsby to Jeanette. Dr. Paran came over in the evening to see Daff, left medicine that relieved her. Will brought from the mill a bag of cornmeal and 2 bushels of chopped rye. Ned and Jupe, he didn't even finish this time. He just said Ned and Jupe. I guess he waiting for us to say in the boat. I'm gonna try to get in some more pages here. We reached to the 10 o'clock hour. Let me see here. Wait a minute. Where was I? What day are we on? It was right after the muslin. You won't get a yard of muslin right now for $3.75, much less 30 yards. 8th Thursday, weather, morning, very dark and cloud and smoke, wind from the northeast, looks very much like rain. Mrs. Nafe sewing the German, who is Mrs. Fry's son-in-law, called wants money. You see, that's what I'm saying. He calls them the German, the Irishman, the Indian, the Negro free. I spoke to him to quarry, which he said he would provide the tools, found him at 87 and a half per day and brought himself. Sent Will to S Town with a letter to the post office for Thomas Shirt Ilianas. Mertha Enoch hauled one load of wood. Will returned from S Town, brought castor oil and screws. Paid 31 and 1/4. Brought a letter from Helena and my patriot of the 5 and 6. It has snowed, hailed, and rained most of the day. Martin Shellman called, wanted money. I gave him none. He likes saying that for certain people. He like called, wanted money. I wanted none. And like we said before, they didn't have telephones. So when he said they call, they come to his house. He says CK is in Sharpsburg with Pony. Gave Will acidity for horse. Gave Daff a dose of oil. Why he keeps spelling oil? OYL. This dude is off the chain. Daff miscarried 2 children this morning. Sent for Miss Fry, who came. She is quite ill. The 2 children which Daff miscarried, she is supposed to have gone with 4 months, both female. So she had twins, and she miscarried. Blackford was negotiating the rent of one of his houses. It was an hour or upwards between their birth. It is thought she took medicine to produce their destruction. I wonder if Daff is Daff an indentured person, because that was one of the, if she was, let me see, that was one of the ways in which women rebelled against their servitude, rebelled against their status as slaves, not wanting their children to enter in. It was documented all across the Caribbean, and apparently known amongst those here, that when the women oftentimes found out, not all the time, but there were some who they would rather, this was illustrated in the Underground series, when they would rather not have their children born into slavery, so they would kill them. Some would wait till they were born, some would, like he's trying to insinuate here, some would take something for them to abort early. And this was a way in which they tried to control, even in the Caribbean. I think in Jamaica, it got so bad that they would, like what they call in Jamaica, dash rebelli, that they tried to make a prohibition on anybody or any midwives that aided women in aborting pregnancies, because they wanted more. After the slave trade was, quote, cut off, they still wanted more slaves, and they were not producing at that rate. And so this became a concern about those. And we definitely going to touch the Caribbean. There's some records, firsthand accounts of slavers in the Caribbean, and so I definitely want to touch those as well, because this is not only America, but a lot of what they learned in America, especially in places like South Carolina, where it said that they took a lot of slaves who came from Barbados. A lot of what they learned it from some plantation owners, some sugar plantation owners, sugar cane plantation owners in the Caribbean, some of these cruel. So we definitely going to draw some Caribbean narratives as well. But ninth Friday, yes. Ninth Friday. Hey, person kid, how you doing? Yeah, it's great to see you live. You're always usually missing us live. Right now, we're reading a very meticulous, not so emotionally driven narrative. Right now, it's actually the journal of John Blackford, who was an entrepreneurial businessman in, is it Maryland? The plantation is still there. It's called Ferry Hill Plantation. And I believe it's a historic site. And so we're reading about, this is 1838 at this point. And this is his journal that they found over the course of a year. And this is the daily operations. And so basically we're taking a look at the other side of slavery, the part that people always say it was economic. And this is often the part that our parents or our foreparents would not have been privy to more often than not. So we're actually looking into his private records to see how economic it was. And as we're seeing, he was all about economics. So right now, if you want to follow along, we're on page 26. And I'm going to continue. It says, so he's insinuating that Daff took something to miscarry the twins. It says, 9th Friday, weather, the wind from the west and is partially clear, is not cold. The river is partially raised. It's muddy. I paid Miss Naff $9.50 to being in full up to this date. Sent Isaiah with her on horseback home after breakfast. I sent the gray horse to have a shoe put on him. CK came home on my mare, which Miss Naff rode home. Isaiah wait to have the horse shod and bring pony home. He returned and brought some yeast and had the horse shod. Mr. McCanney, who I understood is the employee of George Price, called and informed me that Mr. Price desired him to call and inform me that he would take my house in Shepherdstown, repair it, and give it me $75 for the next year, commencing the first day of April next. Murphy Enoch, so he was a landlord. He's looking for basically somebody he's a property owner. He's looking for landlords, looking for somebody to oversee his properties elsewhere. He's partially in on the ferry. He runs a farm. He does wood cutting. He does all this stuff. Again, he uses a mix of indentured servitude, free labor, and slave labor. Murph and Enoch pushing the straw of the barnyard. Will hauling up the gravel for the walks in the yard. Israel Fry and the two Dutchmen. Again, he's not calling people white and black. Really, he's calling you Dutchman, Irishman, German. Called report that they had cut and put up 20 and 1/2 cord of wood. Young Greenwood called again for lick litters. Claim gave him none. Ned and Jupe in the boat. This dude, again, takes no days off, and neither does those who work for him. 10th Saturday, weather clearly partially cool. Froze some little last night. Price's man, mechanic, called to say Price would not take the house at the price offered yesterday, that it could have the whole premises for $75. He would take it. If I presume him, go lay down. No. Right here. And Snively has had some correlation. Israel Fry paid him $3. The Dutchman Nepotian for wood cutting. Philip Fleeman is the name of him who is married to Mrs. Fry's girl. Murphy Enoch has hauled one load of wood home from John and George's cutting. I then sent them out to pick up burn brush. Captain Ashbury returned from Williamsport. Will has been piddling about doing but little. Daff is in the hospital. Miss B corrected Isaiah. Isaac Widows gave him 25 cents. So he's saying, these people, he's not saying how they're doing it. He's not really going into his level of punishment. What does he mean by Miss B is his wife, by the way? So she's sick. So how did she correct him? All these stuff we don't know. Franklin left a letter with B. Herbert, received from Henry. The ground is very soft, what makes it very unpleasant traveling. Will brought over S-Town 5 brooms made by an old Negro at Brown's. He has made 8 in all at 6 1/4 cents each. Ned and Jupe in the boat have done a tolerable business. All right, where are we? We're going to try to get to page 30 here. So we would have read 15 of these pages and moving right along. 11th Sunday, weather clear and pleasant, froze the surface of the ground last night. The weather let in the canal. The river rising is quite muddy. Wrote a note, sent Enoch with it to Colonel Miller, requesting to know the state of Catherine's health. The boy returned with the answer that but little, if any, change in Catherine. Joseph note of Jacob from the canal at Hannah came. He dined, spent the day and night with us. Elizabeth and Franklin here a spell for a little bit, basically. Franklin and Eglin sat out for Williamsport for a boat. Borrows my sleigh harness. They intend to go to D.H. Scaneblees tonight. The company's scow and boarding house boat came down Rogers with it and made some threats relative to 2 poplar logs which I have in the canal, the lower level filled in the course of the day. Ned and Jupe in the boat, a tolerable business. May the Most High help Ned and Jupe, because I don't know how they're doing it. The 12th, Monday, weather clear, fine and pleasant. Joseph No left here after breakfast. The 2 poplar logs came down the canal. Will secured them. John Distoni, the tailor, sent his son with his account in an order for me to pay, which I did, amount $5.50. So people were collecting their own debts. They were issuing credit, but it wasn't this kind of credit. They had personal relationships. All of this, to a certain degree, when we look at the industrial revolution and the way in which the country went, a lot of this has been destroyed. But we understood, well, they understood, not we, but we understood later on that the power is in this level of economics, so that the wealth, to a certain degree, if you're in a town or city, can be distributed more evenly. It says, I rode out to the clearing. Will and Murph burned brush. All the woodcutters at work. Brian's man Peter came with a note from Mr. Mance requesting a tree for forage. Hammer held, he cut a beech down below the clearing. Appears to be upwards of 20 feet. Peter says they gave $2.50 for a stick of 12 foot. So they cutting. My question is, they sure are cutting down a lot of wood. Like, he owns, I guess, I forgot how many acres he owns, but they're cutting down a lot of wood. And this is the mentality, like, of these people who came here. All this time, the native indigenous people were here. They understand that there's a level of reciprocity that has to, be in place as it relates to the earth, as it relates to your business. But when this capitalistic mindset arrived, all you keep hearing is taking. Even as we're reading this, and maybe it's just me, all I'm hearing is a whole lot of extraction. Extract for profit, extract for profit. I mean, like, how many days have we read of them cutting? Like, how many logs are you cutting out the forest? Is that why there's no more forest? You know what I'm saying? And the forest is what cleanses the air. The trees is what provides certain things and habits. And so we see the destruction for capital and grain to amass a quote wealth, to then lord it over people. And that still persists even to this day, as this mentality has permeated many corners of the earth and really robbing the earth. Why are you not putting back the trees that you're taking out? Why are you just, I don't hear, people, planting trees. But anyway, that's just a side note. As you read it over and over and over again, like, how many years? This is just 1 year. Like, how many years did you do this for? But anyway, it says, Hammer held, he cut a beech down. Okay, I read that already. 20 feet. Like, how long did it take? I guess a birch tree, because he says beech, so I'm thinking it's a birch. How long did it take for that tree to grow 20 feet? Peter says they gave him $2.50 for a stick 12 feet. I rode down to JK's, look at the cement stone. Franklin and Elgin returned in the evening. Report they left the boat on the way was obstructed by ice. The Rowan mare Pete got a severe cut in his shoulder by a nail passing through the gate. I sewed it up and put a pitch plaster on it. Ned and Jupe in the boat, poor business. The 13th, Tuesday morning, clear and pleasant. The ground froze some during the last night. Will Murphy and Enoch sowed some clover seed on the hill, part of the lower field after breakfast. Went to burning brush. Enoch went into the boat. Franklin, Ashbury, and Elgin sat out early after the boat they bought, I suppose, at Williamsport and brought a piece yesterday. Negro Peter called and paid for a stick of timber for 2 forged hammers, shelves, $4.50, gave me a very suspicious, hear this now. Hear this now. I guess there wasn't a unilateral or a currency across the board, because he keeps talking about different types of notes. So hear this now. Negro Peter called and paid for a stick of timber for 2 forged hammers, helves, $4.50, gave me a very suspicious looking note of the Lancaster Bank of Ohio. Really? The wagon came. So what are you using to say that this note was, quote, counterfeit? Because that's really what he's trying to say. It's counterfeit. He says the wagon came to haul it down to the forge. KJ's wife called and spent the day. Mr. Mance sent for Frederick. So this is everybody else is passing money, but now all of a sudden the quote Negro, I suppose that either he was free. He doesn't say he's free, but he came paying for something, and now all of a sudden his note got to be suspicious looking. Right. Miss Morgan, Miss Perrin, and Miss Magjill came over dine with us. I rode out to New Ground where the men are cutting wood. JK's wife went home in the afternoon, and Mrs. Morgan and Miss Parent and her two children went home in the evening. Mrs. Madger remained intended to take the stage tomorrow for Hagerstown. Ned and Jupe and Israel Fry in the boat. Small business. So he threw somebody else in the boat. I guess they had suspicious looking business too. Wednesday. Weather is weather. The morning cloudy and somewhat cool. Franklin came down last night with the boat. He called to get the wagon. They went to purchase a new boat. This is the author's note. They went to purchase a new boat for the use in their river canal marketing business. This was Chesapeake and Ohio Canal Company. This was John M. Bryan's Forge at Antietam. Or they're just telling us what is what. And Mrs. Perrine is the wife, blah, blah, blah. Let's keep going here. Page 28. It says here, and horses to haul wood this morning, Martin with him, Will and Murph burning brush. Too much wind to sow clover seed. Miss Fry called to advise respecting her case with Nicholas Matua. Miss B and Miss Magill sat on one half after 1 o'clock in the stage for Boonesborough. Helena rode to Sharpsburg. William rode a piece with her, then rode only pony to meet her. F. Holds, one load of wood has gone over to town to see Welch about the house rent. One widow called, paid him $2. Helena returned with W.M. with her report. Catherine Miller, much better. There's a considerable stir about the river and canal. The river is quite full, rose considerable last night and was at stand all day, commenced rising in the evening. Ned and Jupe and Israel Fry in the boat, but little done. So it looks like he sent an agent in the boat to find out what else was going on. Thursday, 15th, this is of March, 1838. Weather pleasant and somewhat smoky. J.K. Note called, let him have 2 bushels clover seed of old seed, kept over as he said, he had no sufficient to sow his fields. He says Cullen Miller wants 2 bushel clover seed for me if I can spare it. William Murph sowed clover seed, report they have gone out the whole of the lower field and only sold about 3/4 of a bushel. Received a letter from Henry dated the 12th, rode out to the clearing with William. Hands all cutting and mauling wood, I guess hauling wood. Nicholas called and got a mouthing of bacon. They're eating a lot of pork, and this has returned. You see, nothing goes unpunished. All of this consummation of this unclean food, high in fat, it bled also into the epigenetics of their foreparents, of their predecessors. And now we see all of these pathologies that have arrived, especially here, but we're looking at their diet, and it's no wonder why. It says weighed 9 W and 10 cents, 90 cents charged, measured the wood cut by Philip Fleeman, Israel Fry, and Napoleon, and finally to measure 20 cord. Ned and Jupe, Enoch and Israel Fry in the boat in 3 days for Israel's small business. 16th, Friday, weather cloudy in the morning. Murph's sieving the clover seed and clearing it over again. William has taken the saw. Says Martin has gotten sober and is going to work. Miss Hizzer calls, offers me $1.50 per month for a room in my house in Sharpstown. Miss B returned from Boonesborough at 10 o'clock in stage. She brought goods to the amount of $3.93 on credit from J.A. and S. Benson Co. Murph and Enoch has sold on the hill in front of the house. 1B clover seed. Miss Hickman called, returned the $3 I had lent her last fall. She dined with us. I rode to Sharpsburg. W.M. rode the bald pony, had his hind shoes removed directly. Mr. S. Muma to haul 8 BBL flour made especially for family's use. Bought 2 cars and 2 curry combs, cost 50 cents. Shellman off to Sharpsburg drunk. Will has been trifling away the day at the clearing. Ned and Jupe and Israel Fry in the boat. Now they got a neighbor. Done but a small business. Harris's boat sat on Georgetown. Several boats passed on the river full. On the 17th, Saturday, weather morning, cloudy and stormy, snowing and raining, very unpleasant. Murph and Will hauled 1 load wood from the clearing. Martin Shellman called, not sober. Nicholas called, shelled, and got 1 bushel corn, which he said he would take to the mill to have ground. gave him a note to Doc, parents stating how Miss McGill got on Hagerstown. Franklin called Spowak of Boatingwood down the canal. Murph and Will brought up 10 bushels of clover seed, deposited in an office upstairs. Negro George called, pay him $2. The river continues to swell and it continues to rain and snow. Archie Node arrived this afternoon, supped with us, then went down and lodged at Franklin's, left his uncle's John's horse. Here has continued to storm nearly all day. Ned and Jupe, Enoch, and Israel Fry in the boat, light business. And I must say, I think this is also for me, which I may think is just very repetitive and redundant, but I've always had problems keeping journals. And there's a level of discipline as it relates to growing your spirit and keeping a journal, even if you just jot a little bit. So I think for me, like everything that we do and experience is to help us in some way. So definitely with learning about the Left Project. But for me, who I will start a journal 1 day, 2 days that I'm not writing, there's a level of discipline to writing in a journal every day, to note some of the notable things that happened that day so that you can look back and see your progress. So I would say that for me, this is really, even though I'm reading, I have to read some of the redundancy. It's also helping me so that I can see levels of growth in whatever it is I'm trying to do. So, then you always can pull out something out of something as it applies to just not, sorry, 1 second. Get out of there. All right, it says here, 18th Sunday, weather has been raining, hailing, and snow most of the past night. The snow this morning, 3 inches deep, and continues until 9 o'clock to come down the river Ferry. Full arch node left about 9 o'clock, gone to Sharpsburg, and thence to Pleasant Valley, then to Palto and Filler. Franklin came up in the evening for hands to take George Reynolds and Scott Kennedy over the river, which is very high. No return of this day, nothing done. Oh, he's mad. There's no Fred and Jupe in the boat. He says nothing is done. It says 19th Monday, weather clear and calm. The whole country covered with snow. Nicholas called, got a hog jaw and cabbage to bag to carry in. Miss Nave came down after breakfast. Will and Murph dressing rye. Enoch shelling a grist corn. The river is falling off. Of course, the ice is melting. The ice is melting, so it will be beginning to teem. It says the cart to Mrs. Elgin to haul some sand. Enoch cleared the sod from the roots of peach trees and transplanted 3 in the backyard. So they're starting to do planting. This is also early March in the Eastern Seaboard, around Maryland, Virginia area. So now they're starting to plant. The boat has made 2 trips. Ned and Jupe and Israel Fry. Ned brought me 75 cents for the last 2 days' receipts. Poor, poor, poor is what he says. Poor, poor, poor. He said 3 pours. And lastly, before we get to page 30, which we just bust out some, we got to get back on track here. It says 20th Tuesday, weather clear and calm in the morning. Will, Murph, and Enoch sowing clover seed in the lower field. Liquid litter. The saddler sent the boy with an odd order for their mount, which I owe him. The boy is thus Thornsborough's son. Says his father has been dead 3 weeks. Franklin came with his double-barreled gun. Has been after pigeons, which are very plenty, flying in all directions. Franklin wants the team to haul him some wood, took it and hauled a load. Then Murph and Will hauled 2 loads. They report that they have sown 2 bushels clover seed this day of the lower field and 3/4 of the bushels of sowed of 13th. James Eglin called to advise about his appeal case. Trimmed and dressed up some trees. Franklin rode out to Corbin's. JK's wife rode up and spent a short time. Elizabeth spent part of the afternoon and supped with us. Philip Fleming called, paid. Him $3.81, 1/4 for wood cutting. Ned and Jupe and Israel Fry in the boat, which is 6 days he has worked in the boat. So now he's taxing Israel Fry as well for being in the boat. And so he's counting how long he's been in the boat. So we are stopping now at 10:30, and we're going to stop on page 30. And I'm going to come tomorrow, most I willing, and bust out another one so we can expeditiously make our way through this narrative. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know it's not the usual, But definitely, like I said, it's something to be learned, even for myself. I'm learning more about discipline. It's teaching me more about discipline, and at least noting, especially as business people, I'm a business person, and I'm just trying to see, as I'm learning through this left project, what parts can I tune up on. And this is definitely one of them. Keeping a running log of what's going in and what's coming out. Sometimes, especially if you're a creative business person, like if you're a left brain business person, it's kind of like you in the numbers game anyway. But if you're a creative business person, you kind of set yourself up, because you're like, oh, this would be cute, this would be nice, and you're doing it for the love of creating. And then also, this is why a lot of people who are creative, they lose money while they're doing business. So we have to find that balance. He seems left brain. There's nothing that sounds creative about him. But again, like I said, we can learn from everybody. And this is so many things to learn on so many levels. Like we said, we haven't seen a lot of abuse reported. We do see, again, many different people being employed, and him being too, quote, busy in his affairs to really speak much about the person of his servants and slaves and indentured people. So this is very interesting. But once again, most I willing, I'll be back tomorrow to read probably another 15 pages, so we can just bust this out. So until next time, my name is Amuna Israel. I see everybody jumping in as soon as I'm finished here. But like I said, come back tomorrow, and it should be tomorrow around this time, 9 o'clock. I don't think I have any other engagements. Shalom, sis. How are you? Welcome back. I'm gonna finish up. I've been reading since 9 o'clock, so I'm gonna come back tomorrow, most I willing, and we're gonna bust out another 15 pages about John Blackford, and hopefully we'll see what we can learn and how we can. What we're getting, actually a snapshot of 1838 and a day in the life of a slave master and an entrepreneur businessman in 1838, and so very interesting stuff. It's another side of the narrative that we don't too often see or hear about. So with that said, my name is Amuna Israel. I pray everybody have a blessed night, and shalom.